superstars. Peps here with the lace out. Round 3 AFL review. And it was a cracking weekend of football. Lots of great games. Lots of upsets. Lots of things happening around the ground. And I'll tell you what, it was awesome to see. Loved every minute of it. We're going to get into all the games very, very shortly. If you've been following Lace Out on the socials, whether it's been on the Twitterverse, whether it's been on the Facebook, whether it's been on anything else, you would have seen that there was a major announcement coming. And I wanted to start the show off with it right now. Lace Out has been going since 2018. We've had over 250 odd episodes of this great podcast. And there has to come a time where we have to sort of think about what's best for our podcast audience, which is yourself, and also the people watching this live right now. But we also have to think about ourselves and the position that what we have in our own personal lives as well, because it does take a bit of time out of our personal lives to put all this together and get everything running regularly on Tuesday nights with myself and the wonderful co-host with the most, Jamie the J-Dog Wallis, and obviously Tipped Out, which is the sister podcast where we go through our tips. And I did pick 6 out of 9 last week, which I'm not bragging. I did pick Gold Coast, and I also did pick the Western Bulldogs to beat Brisbane. Just sharing that with you. And after being doing the podcast for that many years, myself and J-Dog have just loved every single minute of the podcast and sharing the time with the people listening to us right now, all the way over in the USA with the great man Craigie Wessels, or I've also got the great audience that I have on the channel right now listening to you every week. It does come with a bit of a heavy heart that the announcement that I'm making now is that the amazing, the wonderful Jamie the J-Dog Wallis will no longer be part of Lace Out. He's got a young family, 2 amazing kids, an absolutely amazing, brilliant wife. And his professional life has also taken a bit of a skyrocket as well too. And he just can't commit the time that he would love to the podcast. So he gave me a call, funny enough, after Melbourne won by 50 points against Sydney on the weekend to break the news to me because he knew I'd be in a good mood. So just from my perspective, he's basically a brother from another mother. It is a real tough one for me to bring this to you all tonight and tell you what was going on. It actually made me question what's going to go on with the podcast. And I spoke to him, when it's just me, do I go? Or do I just shut up shop? And the decision is that we're not going to shut up shop. We're going to continue. Okay. He didn't want me to stop it just because of him. He wanted me to continue. In terms of co-hosts and so forth, I haven't even thought about that just yet. Everything is a little bit raw. But I just wanted to give a shout out to you all and give you a massive thumbs up to Jamie because he is an absolute superstar. Just the banter that we had every single week, I looked forward to, no matter how bad my day might have been, no matter how many things were going on in life, whether my team won by 50 goals or lost by 10, in his case, the same. We knew that we could just bounce off each other and just take our minds off it and also interact with a brilliant crowd as well too. Does it mean that he won't be coming back? We never know. But what will happen is that when we do have the opportunity to get him on, by gosh, he'll be joining us live as well too. So I just want to say, if he's listening right now, whether it's watching us live or listening to this later on, J-Dog, you are an absolute star. You are always be the co-host with the most. You were my Lance Bass to this Timberlake. You were the Cash to Tango. But more importantly, I was the lace and you were the out. And no one will be able to replace you. So big fella, we absolutely love you. The actual rumor people are thinking is that Jamie has gone to coach Port. Hinkley out, J-Dog in. We think that's the other rumor going around. I can tell you it's not true just yet. All right. So we'll just a quick pause. to remember the J-Dog. He hasn't passed away. We're just remembering the awesomeness he brought in. Let's get into it. Wow, what a cracking week of football. How exciting were the results to rock out of a massive round of footy. I'm going to start with the ladder. I'm going to pump that one straight in. I'm going to get into the games. And then I've actually got a bit of an analysis of two teams who have, one of them has just launched their season off with a massive start, who is the St Kilda Football Club. And we're going to have a look at the other ones who won 16 straight, won a flag, and done everything else putrid. Absolutely putrid. And I've got some statistical analysis that I've looked at on averages from 2022 to 2023, and it will blow your mind. But before we get into that, let's have a look at the ladder because there were some movers and shakers on the weekend. Rightio, St Kilda sitting at the top of the ladder with Collingwood, the two undefeated teams who have had a cracking start. One of them we expected, one of them we probably didn't. Carlton technically are undefeated, but they have had the draw sitting on 10. And then you've got a cluster of four teams sitting on 8 points. Melbourne had a cracking win over the Swans on the weekend. I was there to see it, and it was the most offensive, most dynamic, the most pressured Melbourne team I've seen probably since 2021. Because 2022, even though they won 10 games, it was a bit of a false economy, which I've said many, many times. The Sydney Swans were putrid on the weekend. They just got beaten by a better team, but that doesn't say anything besides the two wins that they've got. Essendon have dropped a little bit with their loss to St Kilda, but there's nothing to sneeze about there. North Melbourne still remain in the 8, yet with a very slight percentage of 94.4. And then we've got Richmond sitting on 8th, almost in 9th. Would be just a perfect way to end that weekend if they finished on 9th with 6 points. Now have a look at this. We have got 9 teams sitting on 4 points. Freo, GWS, Adelaide, West Coast. West Coast won't even field a team this week with all the injuries that they've got. Port Adelaide, Brisbane, Gold Coast got their first win on the weekend. Great. The Western Bulldogs had a cracker against Brisbane. And the two teams, one of them we expected to be putrid. The other one we expected to be Hawthorn, but it's been the other way around. Hawthorn are sitting on 4 points and Geelong on 0. Nada. Kaputski. Absolutely putrid. Interesting start to the season. We're still feeling each other out. I reckon it's going to take 6 to 7 rounds to really get a true indication of how teams are going to play, but more importantly, how are they going to go deep into the season? Usually by about round 8 to 9, the final 8 is pretty much locked in. So if somebody said that Richmond would be 8th, North Melbourne would be in there, and the Saints at the top of the ladder at this stage of the year, but if having the Cats, many people have picked the Cats to go back to back. They could be winning the Harley Reid Cup around about now. So interesting way to look at things. And it was absolutely, like I said, some cracking rounds of football. It's good to see that Jolie Michael has jumped in. Thank you, Jolie Michael. Because I'm by myself, the wonderful team out there, they're just throwing the comments at me. The tribunal has held up both the Akers and Logue suspensions, both out for Good Friday, which is a bit of a shame. I didn't see the Akers one, but I did see the Logue one. And yeah, a bit of a strange one. It was more of a block. There wasn't any malice in it, but I just think they don't want anything to happen with that as well too. So I know why the AFL did it, but it's going to be a bit of a shame that he's been out because he's been brilliant. A great pickup by North Melbourne to join the Stocks over there. All right. I reckon it's time to spin some magnets, ladies and gentlemen. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off with some Barassies. Let's start off with some Barassies. Let's get the bad stuff out of the way first and foremost. So, Ron, are you there, big boy?
Haley off, Ellingworth on. Bloody weak as piss.
All righty. Richmond Football Club. You are being dragged 1 goal to halftime. Now, everybody who isn't a Richmond supporter would have absolutely loved the fact that they didn't do anything before halftime. 1 goal. Mate, they should have been 10 goals down by that time. I could have even thrown in Collingwood for bad kicking. Actually, I'm going to throw them. They were 2 goals 10 at one stage. It should have been 10 goals 2 and over by quarter time, let alone half time. But you know what? They got absolutely smashed. Don't let the result, what happened at the end, fool you. They were absolutely putrid. And I will say it again. They have the most overrated forward, Tom Lynch, and it proved again on the weekend. His kicking for goal was woeful. Again. Once again, destroys the Shockers, destroys the cellar dwellers, doesn't do anything against the good teams. You watch me, prove that I'm wrong. All right. Now, umpires, I'm chucking you, especially the GWS Carlton umpire, dissent. Are you freaking kidding me? Now, I know, when I was growing up playing footy, like I said, 377 games for the East Keeler football. Superstar. I never got reported once. Never put myself in a situation off. But bloody hell, have a cup of concrete and harden up, would you? To stick your arms out and go, what's going on, and saying that is dissent. He didn't swear at him. He wasn't demonstrative towards him. Just asked a question with his arms, and that's dissent. What's happened? This is what annoys me with this whole dissent thing. You're trying to get a connection between the umpires on one side and the playing group on the other. Now, I remember, and anybody who's played sport tonight or played sport, you've got to have that banter between the umpires and the players, all right? Come on, boys, get up, all right, let's go. Oh, hey, come on, number 5. Don't duck you. Those sort of things back and forth. You generate a bit of a relationship with the umpires, all right? But in this case, the AFL are actually doing the complete opposite and drawing a wedge between the players and the umpires, and thus the supporters driving a wedge between them and the AFL. And what happened on the weekend did cost GWS the game. Carlton hadn't kicked a goal in that half until that actually occurred. And then I think they went on a run and kicked the next 4 after that as well. It cost the Giants a game. The AFL refused to come out and concede that they made a mistake. Why can't you say they made a mistake? What have you got to lose? There'd be more respect than the half-witted response that we got yesterday where there's a grey area. No, there should not be a grey area. It's just you either did it or you didn't. There's no because I'll tell you what, raise your hand, even though we can't see. You're driving the car right now. You're on the train. You're doing a workout. You're on your 3rd set, and you're listening on the podcast right now. If you're thinking, hold on, what? Yeah, I've got no idea what dissent is. Well, my hand's up right now because I have no idea. I saw actions during the Carlton game. Snags Higgins is doing the old hands up like, like a freaking air host. He's saying the exits are here and here, and he doesn't get anything done to him. And apparently, if you do it before a decision is made, that's okay. But if it's after a decision is made, that's when it's bad. Figure that one out. So, dissent, it's got to be looked at. It's got to be worked out because it's, like I said, it's driving a wedge between players and umpires, supporters and the AFL. That's the last. And I want to throw one other thing when I say dragged. For anybody who hasn't heard, I'm dragging Jamie Wallis because he's no longer with part of this podcast, and I'm going to miss the big boy something chronic as well too. So I'm dragging him because I love him as part of the show, and I'm going to miss him dearly. All right. Let's have a look at the Juddies right now, everybody. Let's get into the Juddies.
3 votes.
What was that?
3 votes.
All right. 3 votes. Can I throw this out to a young bloke? Now, if the rampaging Tommy Roker was on, one of the Lace Outlaw originals, one of the guys who came on when the podcast first started, he's done season previews for the last 3 years, etc. He's told me about this guy. He's told me how he could be anything. And over the last couple of weeks, he pretty much got lambasted for his laziness around the ball, the way he attacked it. Well, Jack Lukosius, he had a pretty average week against St Kilda, criticised for being lazy. 7 days later, 5 goals and a 76-metre bomb. Welcome back, Jack. Jack's back. All right. Footy. What do we love about footy? We love characters, all right? We know it's a serious business. We know that it can get gripping at times. It can get exciting at times. We sometimes put too much pressure on our players. Everything there. But I tell you what, if you watch the Bulldogs game against Brisbane, the fact that they came out and played great football against Brisbane, which is what they did to Melbourne the week before, The debut of Arthur Jones was sensational. This is a guy all the way from WA. His enthusiasm was just oozing out of his pores. The love he has for his family, the love he has for the game was just beautiful to see. And when you see a young guy debut, the fact that they had to hold him back and say, now run onto the ground after the siren rang because he wanted to be out there with his teammates. I haven't seen just excitement like that unless it's a premiership and the guys on the bench want to run on. So that is absolutely amazing. And I want to see more of it. All right. And the last one, it was a silly one, but crikey, if you didn't have a bit of a laughing hell, what the hell was going on? The Michael Fredericks backflip. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, get on the YouTubes or the Snappy Chats or the Twitters or the Instas or the Gram, some people say, and just have a look at his backflip. They were up by a bucket load, does the inside. It was almost like a shooting star press if you're into your wrestling. And it was silly, but I loved it. So over to you, Michael. Hey, and one other one I have to say, throwing this one in for all the wrestling fans out there. WrestleMania Night 1 and 2 have just finished over the last couple of days. Absolutely sensational. I am bloody dragging the WWE for Roman Reigns continuing his 3-year streak with the titles. Cody should have won. It's the wrong booking decision, and I'd love to see how they're going to get themselves out of this one. So there is your magnets. That's who's being dragged. That's who's got the 3 votes. All right. Rising Star. Now, have a look at the Rising Star. Before we get into it, couple of things that have come through on the chat. So first of all, is there any truth that Scoops will be the next J-Dog? No one can replace the J-Dog. There's only one J-Dog and one J-Dog only. And Scoops would be, he'd have to pay me to come onto this podcast because we have nothing but the best on here. The people want to see the Love Machine get on here, aka my brother, Marky P. If I can get him out from under his wife's thumb, he might have a chance of coming on here as well too. But I've got a bit of an idea, and I'm going to throw it out to you, listeners, live and listening to this on the podcast, if you want to be part of the show. All right, leave that with you very shortly. All right, but I want to talk about this week's Rising Star. Geez, what a shocker. All right, no. Tori's just said no way to Scoops. She wouldn't listen anymore. All right, well, we've dropped that one automatic. No Scoops. Here, no Scoops. Robbo, no Scoops. All right, I want to bring up the young bloke from WA, Ruben Mayer Gimby, being rewarded a fine performance for West Coast in the Western Derby, named this week's Rising Star. Picked 9 in last year's draft. He's impressed. Strong performer on the weekend. 20 disposals, 8 tackles, 6 clearances, 13 contested possessions against an Eagles team that, in my eyes, they had more heart and more fight than probably half the losers on the weekend. They were 7 players down at one stage. I will say, though, Jolly Michael, you are absolutely correct. Jacob Van Rooyen was ripped off, but I tell you what, the people at the ground weren't, because every time he went near the ball, the Roo roared through the stadium. So I'll get onto that very, very shortly. But congratulations, young man. Ruben Mayer Ginby is this week's Rising Star nominee. All right. Okay, let's have a look at the games from the weekend. All right, really high, quick. We're going to call this the Scoreboard. Time to have a look at the scoreboard. Quick whip around. People on the chat, throw your opinions in. I'll go through what I saw, what I thought, what I observed. Got to see most of the games. Some of them I didn't, so I'd love to hear your feedback on them. But just from what I've heard and what I've observed so far, the Western Bulldogs versus Brisbane game on the Thursday night, belter of a game. The Western Bulldogs played their finest football for a long, long time. Brisbane, you are absolutely woeful. Can you believe the team that absolutely destroyed Melbourne by 30 contested possessions the week before came out and served up what they've got? They can't win the flag. I'm calling it now. I know we're 3 rounds in, but they cannot win the flag at all, can they? They are too inconsistent. Their forward line is a shambles. Everything that we thought that was great about them. The Hipwood Danaher does not work. What do you do there if you're Chris Fagan? Do you put Hipwood back? Is Danaher going to win you a flag off his own boot? I don't think he's can. And I think just the home record that they have is the only reason they're doing what they're doing right now. That saying, they'll probably end up playing finals and another false economy because I just don't think they've got the testicular fortitude in between the ears to take it to the next step. I will say something though. Watching the Western Bulldogs, and I don't care who you are, but if by halfway through that second quarter you did not have love for the Bont, there is something wrong with you. Because the Bont was he was in everything. And he was just class, guts. He was best on ground by the length of the Flemington Straight. And for a team that was pretty average the first couple of weeks, he said, boys, jump on my back and I'm going to take you with you. Jamara kicking 5. He had 5 kicks, 5 marks. Sorry, 5 kicks, 5 goals. Great return after the week that he's had. I know one player does not make a team. I know there's no I in team David Salt, but there is 5 in individual brilliance. And I think that's what we saw by the Bont. I'd still leave Norton down forward. I think Bruce down back, running off half back. There was a couple of times he actually took the game on, and I haven't seen him do that for a while. I think Darcy needs to get a little bit more time. They need to do with Darcy what Melbourne did with Van Rooyen. Don't rush him in for the sake of it. Or if not, put him down back. We saw him behind the ball, played really well last year. I think they need to do that. But I think the 4 talls, the Manhattan forward line for the Doggies doesn't work. They changed it up this week. Arthur Jones had a bit of life. Oscar Baker, the old Melbourne player, I thought he was really serviceable for them as well too. So hopefully the Doggies are able to take it next week a little bit further as well too. All right. Craigie Wessels all the way from the wonderful US of A is saying that Nakia Cockatoo, what's going on with him? He probably won't get a game. But Danaher, he's having some great moments, but they just that moments. He isn't consistent. He isn't sustainable. I think Hipwood is definitely salvageable, but they are a bit like Freo's forward. I reckon Freo's forward line and the Brisbane forward line are very, very similar, where they're either going to be on or they are going to be absolutely putrid. Absolutely putrid. And once again, Arthur Jones, love what he brought. How good would it have been if he'd had that snap that didn't hit the post? Oh, the roof would have come off the dome. All righty. Let's have a look at the Collingwood-Richmond game from the Friday night. Collingwood did what Collingwood do at the moment. They are just rolling on everybody. This game should have been over by quarter time. At one stage, I think it was 2 goals, 10 to 1 goal. And Richmond just, they're I don't care what anybody says. Richmond are done. Now, you can shoot me down for this one if you like, but Richmond are done. They can't win the flag at all. No, not at all. Who did they really have out? They had Hopper out, Martin out, Broad out. Like, are they really going to be as dynamic as what Collingwood? Collingwood don't have a ruckman this week, which is going to be interesting for them. So they're hoping for a mid-season draft because they need to pull someone in. Only if they had a ruckman. Did they ever have a ruckman on their list? Did they have a good one? I remember they had like an All-Australian or 2-time All-Australian ruckman. What happened to him? Oh, that's right. They didn't need him, did they? They didn't want him. They didn't think they wasn't part of it. And where did he go? Oh, he went over to the D's, didn't he? And did anyone see what Brody Grundy did against the Swans on the weekend? I'll give you a hint. Took the piss. So, you reap what you sow, Collingwood, all right? You didn't want him, and now you do. So, too bad. Richmond, no good. No good. They won't make the 8. They'll probably finish 10th or 11th. They need to have a real hard look. What do they do? I don't think there's another run in them. I'm sorry. There is no run in them. But Collingwood, they're just going to continue the next week. This week is going to be a belter of a game. Collingwood, Brisbane on the Thursday night up in Brisbane. We know what Collingwood's going to turn up, what Brisbane's going to turn up. I have got no idea. Hawthorn versus North. I did pick North to win this. And I think the fact that the hyphen went out in the warm-up, which is a bit of an ugly one, and Jai Simpkin not being there due to suspension, I think that was just enough to tip Hawthorn over. I will say, though, Hawthorn did play pretty good football from what I've seen. Something better than they have the last couple of weeks. If I was North, I'd look at it and go, it was 19 points, 3 goals, not really good conditions down there. You could you could survive that one, knowing when two of your best players were out. So when they come back in, it's going to be a lot better for them. Hawthorn got the win that they needed. And, like I said, didn't see too much about this game. But I will say that it was a good result for the competition. Mind you, Will Day had his best game ever, having 29. And Mr. Brockman kicked 3 as well. And I think Mitchell went to him at the start of the game and said, hey, you know what? Just go out and play some footy, young fella. And he went out and kicked 3. So that's absolutely a ripper to see. GWS versus Carlton. We know this one we spoke about. Cripps had 42. GWS should have won this game, let's be honest, if it wasn't for the umpire interfering. Now, I don't know. I always say that a game is won over 120 minutes. But sometimes there are situations where a turning point in the game can flip it for another team, and that flipped it for Carlton. Carlton did not have a goal up in that half up until that stage, and then they kicked the next 4. By then, GWS were spent. You've got to also remember, they came from the other side of the country and then came all the way back again. So they'd had a bit of a rough first 3 weeks of the season. So hopefully they'll be able to settle down a little bit. Cripsy had 42, did what he does. Carlton, they're real as far as I can see at the moment. They're going to need a couple more tougher tests. Wait till they get against the Carltons, the Melbournes, the Sydneys, the ones who really put some high defensive pressure on them. We'll see how they actually handle that as well too. Port Adelaide versus Adelaide. I think that might be why Jamie actually quit the podcast, because Port Adelaide, mate, you guys are shit. Absolutely shit. And by the way, Toby Green, I think he had 4 disposals for the day. We're still missing. He's on the side of a milk bottle. You're exactly right there, Joel Michael. Port Adelaide, they've got a great forward. Rankin was absolutely sensational on what he delivered. Massive crowd of 48,000, close to 49,000 people turned up for this game. But Port Adelaide, every time you think that they're going to win and they're going to dominate, they serve up the tripe like this, especially in a showdown. It was neck and neck at one stage, and then Adelaide just went boom shakalaka. Connor Rosie had 28. Riley Philthorpe, don't say that with a lisp, had 5 as well too. Just when you think that, is this guy going to break out and do something, he goes ahead and does it as well. So it's good to see him get the win. It also puts a bit of belief in the game plan for Matthew Nicks. There's been a bit of talk. Will it actually work? Well, it won't work. To have a win over Port Adelaide, Ken Hinkley, what would you do if you were Port Adelaide right now? What would you do? Where does he fit? I'm really concerned about them, to be honest. I'm really concerned that they're not going anywhere. They're not going forward, and they're not going back. They're stagnant. They remind me of, remember when North Melbourne just sat in that middle tier, didn't win flags and didn't bottom out, and then they had to do the massive cull. This mob remind me, Port Adelaide, I cannot see them winning a flag at all, but they won't bottom out. They are just absolutely in the middle of nowhere. Their back line is poo. Their midfield is slow. Their forward line is defunct. The highlight reel, Mitch Georgiades, doesn't even get a game. Good luck if you're a Port Adelaide supporter. Absolutely. Hey, St Kilda Essendon, what a turnout. Close to 70,000 at the G for the 150th. Darcy Parish had 35. Snags, Higgins, and Danny Butler, they had 4 each. Great win to St Kilda. Once again, it was neck and neck. Will they be able to get over? But the running capacity of St Kilda, which I haven't seen for quite a while, just blew me off the park. And they are a really good team. And in a moment, I'm going to take you through some stuff when you compare what they've done compared to Geelong and just how one team has risen in their statistical averages compared to how the other has dropped significantly. I'm going to take you through some stuff, and it is absolutely mind-blowing on how one team has risen so high and the other one has fallen away. And I'll get into that very, very shortly. Eston, you can hang your head up high. When 2 Meter Peter comes back, you're going to be better for it. You just got to hang in there. I don't know how much longer they're going to be able to hang in for. It is only round 4. I know they've got a few tough weeks coming on. I think this was a game that only certain people like moi picked. Gold Coast beating Geelong, 13,000 up there at Heritage Bank Stadium. Lockie Weller, great to see him coming back off his knee. Tom Stewart had 29. Jack Lacoste just kicked 4, but it was Miller. King started flying for his marks. Matt Rowell was around the ball. They have been they were sensational. everything that you expect from Gold Coast, they served up on the weekend. And I just hope that is the Kickstarter for them to do something this year. I just hope. I think everybody who listens to this podcast, watch us live, they just want Gold Coast to succeed. It's as simple as that. Because I actually like them. I actually like them. There's clubs in Melbourne I can't stand. I just love everything about what Gold Coast are. They're having a crack. They're young kids who go up there, players who want to go up there for the right reasons. And David Swallow, first Gold Coast son to play 200 games. Congratulations to you. Class by Geelong, giving him the Guard of Honour. And one thing, when I watch Tommy Hawkins run around, he is just a better looking version of Ben Brown. They're both stiff. They don't look like they should be on the park at the moment. So maybe it's time to give Big Tommy a bit of a rest because he is a shell of his former self at the moment. Fremantle versus West Coast. Look, let's be honest. I did pick West Coast for this, and I reckon they were a massive chance to win this one. But unfortunately, they got 7 injuries. But here's the thing. They got injuries, and they busted their nuts for 3.5 quarters, and it wasn't until the end of, or halfway through the last, did Fremantle really kick away. Now, it was a 41-point win, but that would probably be a 41-point win that Adam Simpson can go back and say, we had 7 players out by the end of the game. So we were running on fumes. We only had no few players on the bench. We didn't have a complete set on the field as well too. And to lose by that against a team that was literally running at full tilt, wonderful to see. Caleb Sarong had 35. Michael Walters kicked 4. But what does that say about Fremantle when one of your oldest players is once again kicking the most for them? Jackson had a bit more of a better game. Flying Ryan won't be there against the D's this week. So, no more I'm putting you on a poster Max Gorn sort of stuff. Yeah. So great win by Fremantle. They needed it. But and I would say this, an honourable loss by the West Coast team as well too. And the last game on the weekend, I was happy to be there. Melbourne versus Sydney. The best Melbourne have played in a hell of a long time. Clayton Oliver, 150 games. I'm saying it now, and there's a lot of Melbourne people that will say it's sacrilege when I say this, but he is literally on the cusp. He's 24, turning 25, I believe, or he's just turned 25. If his career continues the way it's going at the trajectory, he'll go down as Melbourne's best ever player. Better than Barassi, better than Steins, better than Lyon, Schwartz, Uze, Checker Hughes, the great Robbie Flower. He's building up a resume after 150 games that teams couldn't even get a sniff of. Jacob Van Rooyen at forward. Hey, how good is it? You get to see Saad get the ball. Everyone's like, woof. And we didn't have it since the ooze. But I tell you what, seeing the roo as soon as he got that first kick of the day, we've got a cult figure down there, and it's only been one game. He played. I loved his content. Everything that Sam Wiedemann should have been, he's it. He loves the contest. He's built for footy. I'm wrapped that Melbourne let him grow a little bit longer in his development, which is something that we never did for a long time. But it was a supporting cast that really held it up for me. Cole Chandler played an absolutely cracking game. I love what he brings. Lockie Hunter on the wing kick too. Like I said, Oliver kicked 2. Petrarca wasn't his best, but he still had a casual 31. Fritchie kicked his 3. The goals were spread across the board with a number of players. Stephen May, lever down back. They threw Petty up forward. Like, there was so many things about that. Judd McVee coming out of the back line. Like, I heard another podcast saying that he looks like an accountant. My goodness gracious. Like, if this is the stuff that we're bringing, it's making it a competition for spots. And it's great to see Goody is changing it up a little bit as well too. So pretty cool. Hey, Sydney, I think Callum Mills really stood up for them. But outside of that, like, it wasn't a Sydney that I expected. I thought it'd be a tougher game. At one stage, it got to within a kick, but then Melbourne put the foot down. So I'm really wrapped what the Melbourne boys did. But from the Sydney perspective, they'll be pretty disappointed, especially that they'd taken it to Melbourne at the G their last 2 games pretty heavily. Papley scored a couple at the end. Buddy didn't look like he was going to get near it. Everything that Armady and McDonald did the week before. They play against a back line that can actually play, and they got towed up. So it was a great win. And it was also great. I saw Tori Williams. She was on the ground there, leaning on the fence, superstar sponsor. She was just in her element. It was great to see the smile on her face as her boys ran out as well too. Took my daughter, took her friend as well too. Caught up with Scotty Osborne, absolute superstar Sydney supporter. It was just a great day, seeing great people celebrating the game that we love. So that's the scoreboard for round 3. It was, and heading into the long weekend, it's going to be even better. All right. I mentioned at the start of the show, and I mentioned it just recently, I want to tell you, I just have a quick chat about pretty much the demise of Geelong and the rise of the St Kilda Football Club. Now, you can't say that you've been a little bit surprised by what has happened to the Saints, and you're definitely surprised by what's happened to the Cats, because everybody thought that, well, Geelong is going to be up there. And the Saints, I don't know what they're going to do under Ross, but will the styles change that much? But you've got a team sitting at the top of the ladder, and you've got another team sitting at the bottom. Anyway, Saints at the top, Cats at the bottom. So I thought, look, I wanted to just take a moment and go, look, I want to do a statistical analysis between 2022 and what we are on at 2023. So I'm looking at the averages between the two teams. Now, I've broken it down to around about 10 different categories. And I'm going to whip through these in terms of the differences in what they had last year to this year. Okay, so sit with me and you'll start to get a bit of a picture about what Geelong aren't doing as much now and what Geelong are doing less of, but making it more effective for them as well too. So let's start at the bottom of the ladder. Let's start at the Geelong Cats. So last year, on an average, they were averaging close to 17 more disposals a game. At the moment, they are close to 36 less per game than their opponent. And it gets worse. Disposal efficiency has dropped from 73 to 70. Marks are right across the ground. They used to outrank their opponents by close to 5 marks a game. They're now down by 15 a game. They can't get their hands on the ball. Tackles, they're tackling more. So they used to be pretty much on par, maybe one more tackle a game. They're actually tackling, around about 2.3 more than their opponents on average because they haven't got the ball, where previously that they did. Hit-outs. Usually, we talk about Stanley, we talk about Blitzarves, that great combination that they had last year. They'd be averaging 3 more tap-outs a game. They're now 9 less than their opponents on average. Goals. They were close to 5 goals a better team than their opponents. They're down by 2.5 this year. So they're close to a 7-goal turnaround per game so far from what they did last year to this year. Should I keep going? I bloody will. Contested possessions. They used to hunt the ball and get the ball. They used to have 7 and a bit more contested possessions per game. They're now 15 less. The Joel Selwood effect is real, everybody. Absolutely real. Let's keep going. Uncontested possessions. They used to stack up around about 9 more on average. They're down 24 per game. So they can't win the ball. And even when they've got no pressure, no contesting, they still can't do anything with it now either. Marks inside 50. Tomahawk, Cameron, 5.6 more than their opponents last year. This year, 0.7. They can't even get, with those two power forwards, they can't even outrank their opponents by more than one. But this is the stat that, when you look at it, explains everything for both teams. Last year, Geelong were a run and gun team. They were powerful. They were brutal. You couldn't catch them. They would out-average their opponents 478.8 metres a game. This year, in the first 3 rounds on average, 258 metres less. So they're close to 700 plus metres a game from dominating to being behind. So that tells me they're not getting the ball. They can't get the loose ball. They are not getting enough of it. They're not willing themselves to get out of it. Their rucks are getting beaten. They're kicking less scores. We know the Tomahawk hasn't had the greatest start to the season. And if it wasn't for Jeremy Cameron the week before, they would have been pummeled by Carlton Blues. They're just not working hard enough. Now, I don't know whether it's their on-ball brigade. I just don't think that they've all bought in. Now, we know Geelong normally start off a bit slowly, but some of those numbers would be really concerning across the board looking at it. Can I flip the script and I want to have a look at the Saints? And there's going to be some stuff here that just go, wow, because they've actually dropped in some areas, which has been a great sign for them. And you'll know what they are when we get through it. So Saints in 2022, all right, they weren't great. They did start 8-3, if you remember last year. They hit the bye and then fell in a complete hole. Let's have a look at them now. So from a disposals perspective, they used to have 14 more. Now they're 4 less. So they're actually handling the ball a lot less than they did last year. Disposal efficiency is virtually the same, 73.2 to 73.3. So there's no difference in the way that they use the ball. Okay. Here's another one. Marks. They used to outrank 7.5 marks a game. Now they're down 14.7. So they're taking 21 less marks a game. All right. Tackles, they're out there. They used to be 1 up. Now they're 1 down. So there's nothing really major there. All right. Hit outs. They used to outrank by 4. Now that they've got they're 7 and a bit down. So 7.3 down. So they don't rely on the hit out like they used to do with Marshall. Goals per game. Now, here's a good one. Goals per game. They sat on 0. So they basically kicked the same amount of goals on average as their opponents did over the course of the year. This year and this year alone, they're outranking their opponents by 5 goals. That's a 5-goal a game better turnaround than 2022. That is massive. That is massive. A couple more for you. Uncontested possessions. They used to rank highly, 8.4 above their opponents. They're negative 16 now. From a marks inside 50, they've gone from 0.2 to 1.7. So they're doing more down there. But here's the stat that will dead set blow up in your shorts when you hear it. From a meters gained perspective, they would average 78 more meters gained for their opposition than they did in last year, 2022. This year, 479. So they've gone up 400 meters per game. So what this tells me is they're not overhandling the ball. They're not getting cheap possessions. They're not doing the chippy game that Ratton would do as well too. They're getting the ball. They're going long. They're going direct. They're going accurately, and there's less of a handball game, and they're taking territory off their opponents and getting more to. Now, there was some footage that they showed on the Sunday footy show, and if you can get a chance to look at it, it was mind-boggling. They swarm in on the ball carrier, but what happens is as soon as they get their ball, they burst forward, and they burst in waves. And what they're doing is they're going long ball over the back or to some smaller forwards who have been sitting back, not towards, I won't say the 50, but not pushing up the ground too far. And they've got the kick over the back as well too. So they are pushing hard. They're running hard. They are using the ball a hell of a lot better by foot, and it's transitioning onto the scoreboard. And they've only conceded, I think, something like 160 to 170 points thus far in season 2023. So that is the Ross Lyon blueprint. It's pressure. It's getting around the ball, better use of the ball. But the one thing that has surprised me with what Ross has done so far this year is the fact that these guys are going long and hard, and they've still got to bring in, they've still got to bring Steele. They've still got to bring in Membry. They've still got to bring in King. And there's one more that I can't think off the top of my head, but they've got 4 guns. Oh, Jones. They've got 2 guns, I'd say, to come in Steele and King, and then the other 2 will. So if they're doing that at the moment, what's going to happen when those guys come in? Now, once again, a little bit like Collingwood, is it sustainable? We're 3 rounds into the season. Let me see if they're still going at this rapid pace, same as Collingwood. 20, that's around 15, 16, when things start to really ramp up, Melbourne were 10-0 last year, and look what happened towards the back end of their season, all right? Now, Saints, Craigie Wessels has come out of again. They've been impressive as heck. You have a soft spots for the Saints. You are a Cleveland sports fan. They've had 173 173 seasons of major sport in the whole life, and they've won one championship when you were 1 year old, and you haven't seen anything else since. So, yeah, they had their 150th. Everybody bleeds for the Saints to win another flag, and I hope that they do so. I don't know what team it would be against. If you've got a team you'd like to see them win a flag against, Collingwood would be great after the Milne bounce. But I'm just really excited at this particular moment in time to see what the Saints have done, and the stats back it up, and also to see how the Cats have fallen off really, really hard, and the stats back it up as well too. So as Hightower said in Police Academy 2, the meter don't lie. The meter don't lie. Well, the stats don't lie here. So take it what it will, and that's the analysis that Lace Out brings. Better than 360, better than First Crack, better than anything else you get on the commercial stations, because it's Lace Out. That's how you watch your footy as well too. All righty. Look, we're heading into the last couple of stages. We've got one person running the podcast. For the people who have joined in just now, I know Jules Julio has joined us. Great to see the great man here. Jazzy Ruboy was here as well too. They're thinking, where is Jamie the J-Dog Wallis? Some sad news about the Jamie. He won't be continuing on in the podcast. Family and professional challenges in life have taken a priority, and I fully support the guy. And it's great to see, him excelling in what he wants to do. He'll be forever part of the Lace Out family, and but he said whenever he can get on, the invitation's always open, and when we get him on here, we're going to celebrate the great man when he can too. All righty. So let's head into round 4. It's a big round of footy from a number of perspectives. But what I'm also going to do is remember, tipped out. It was a bit late last week, and I do apologise for that. School parent-teacher interviews, all that fun stuff that parents have to do, sort of put a bit of a hold on it. But there are some cracking games heading into this week, so I'll get the tips out as soon as I possibly can. And if J-Dog sends his through, I'll also throw those in, because he likes to brag when he gets more than me, which is not often. But there's some cracking games. And if I'm looking at 1 week at a time right now, the Brisbane Collingwood game is going to be absolutely fascinating on Thursday night at the Jabba the Hutt. It's going to be a corker. Can North Melbourne beat Carlton at Marvel Stadium on the Good Friday game? I hope they get a bumper crowd. If you can, give that they may grow. The Children's Hospital appeal is massive here down in Victoria. And if you can, a couple of bucks here and there makes all the difference. Once again, it's all about the kids. It's not about us, and everything helps. So if you see the tin rattlers, give them a buck or two, because every little bit helps. Richmond Western Bulldogs, interesting one again. St Kilda Gold Coast at Marvel. Can Gold Coast back that up, or will St Kilda go it again? I'd go with St Kilda, but you never know what Gold Coast is going to show up. And I think even the Monday game, I think that's the other one. I reckon the bookends of this round being Brisbane and Collingwood round 1, first game on Thursday night. But we're finishing off with the traditional Easter Monday game, Geelong versus Hawthorn. Could you imagine if Hawthorn get over Geelong on Easter Monday? How good will the show be on Tuesday if that happens? It would be sensational. I know Craigie Wessels over there in the US will be, giving me daggers right now as he sees this. And all the Geelong supporters as well going, Peps, just shut up, bring Jamie back. But that could be an absolute ball terror if Hawthorn pinch another win against a lowly Geelong. And they could be 0-4. Not 0 the Saints, it's 0-4. All righty. Hey, listeners, that is Lace Out. That is Lace Out. Now, I did say something that if you would like to join me, if you would like to be a guest co-host for a week and you want to join me live, you're not going to be the J-Dog. You'll be your own co-host with the most. If you want to join me, send me a message on the Facebook page. Say that you want to be part of the show, and we'll organise a time. You don't have to do it every single week, but if you want to have a crack, as long as you've got a good mic, you've got a webcam, we'll be able to hear, and you've got an opinion, you want to have a crack at it, I'd love to have you on the show as well too. And I've also said, if you want to sponsor the show, sponsor a segment, sponsor Lace Out, sponsor both shows, totally up to you as well too. We can organise something for you. Just drop us a message on the Facebook page as well too. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is your round 3 AFL review. I'm your host, Christopher Pepper. And normally I'd ask the co-host with the most, how he wants his football. But I know that every single one of you love it. Lace out. Have a great weekend. Tune in for Tipped Out. And if I don't speak to you soon, I hope your team wins. I'll see you next week. Take care, listeners. Thanks for listening to the latest episode of Lace Out. Head over to iTunes and Spotify to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. And remember, join us every single Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, on our Facebook page with yours truly, Christopher Pepper, and the co-host with the most, Jamie Wallis, giving you your footy how you want it. Lace out.